My heart was pounding as I entered the courtroom. I held Emily's hand tightly. She was shaking just as much as I was. Across the room, Adam smirked arrogantly, standing next to that woman, Victoria, surrounded by expensive lawyers. We were alone. "Standing for the judge," announced the officer. I stood up on shaky legs. Emily leaned on me to keep from falling. Everyone there already knew. We were going to lose everything. The door opened and the judge entered. His steps were firm, his face was serious, and his black robes were firm. He stepped onto the bench, his eyes sweeping the room with authority. Then he saw me. The judge stopped, completely stopped. His face paled as if he'd seen a ghost. The papers slipped from his hands and fell to the table with a thud. "Grace?" His voice came out in a strangled, incredulous whisper. The entire courtroom fell silent. I felt every head turn toward me. My body froze. That man. Those eyes. I knew those eyes. "Ethan?" I murmured in disbelief. "Ethan Rogers?" My God, it was him. That little boy I saw over 30 years ago. If you're watching this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're listening to my story. I want to know how far you've come. You must be wondering how we ended up in court, right? I'll tell you. 6 months before that day in court, my life was different. Emily had just graduated with a degree in architecture, full of dreams and plans. Married for 3 years to Adam, a successful real estate agent, she seemed to have everything ahead of her. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when the phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello? Are you Grace Mitchell, Emily Carter's aunt?" The voice was formal, tense. My heart raced. "Yes, it's me. What happened?" "Your nephew-in-law, Adam Carter, asked us to call. There's been an accident. Emily is at Central Hospital. You need to come immediately." I dropped everything. The pots, the spoon, everything. I grabbed my bag and ran to the car, my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. Emily was the daughter of my younger sister, Sarah, who had died of cancer when Emily was just 15. Since then, I raised her as my own daughter. She was all I had left of my sister. When I arrived at the hospital, Adam was in the hallway. He looked distraught, his hair messy, his shirt wrinkled. I ran over to him. "Adam, what happened? Where is my niece?" He held my shoulders, his eyes red. "Grace, it was terrible. She fell down the ladder on the construction site she was supervising, an industrial ladder. From the 3rd floor. My legs gave out. Adam caught me. The doctors are with her now. She's alive, but..." His voice trailed off. "Her injuries are serious. Her spine, her legs. They don't know if she'll walk again." The world spun. My Emily, my sister's daughter. The girl I promised Sarah I would care for forever. We spent hours in that cold hallway. When the doctor finally came out, his expression said it all before he even opened his mouth. "The surgery was successful as far as it could be," he explained wearily. "But there was severe damage to the spinal cord. Emily will be paraplegic. She will need a wheelchair and constant care. Intensive physical therapy may help, but the chances of a full recovery are slim." I broke down right there. Adam held me, and I felt him tremble too. In that moment, I thought, at least she wasn't alone. She had a husband who loved her. How wrong I was. For the first few weeks, Adam seemed present. He came to the hospital every day, holding Emily's hand, talking quietly to her. When we brought Emily home, my home because their apartment had stairs, he helped install the grab bars, the ramp, and rearrange the room. Emily was devastated. My niece had always been independent, strong, and full of life, just like my sister Sarah. Seeing her in that wheelchair, depending on me for everything, broke my heart. But I was there. Adam, on the other hand, began to change. First came the absences. "I have to work, Grace. Someone has to pay the bills." Fair enough, I thought. But the shifts grew longer. He arrived late, left early. When he was home, he was on his phone, irritable, distant. Emily noticed. I saw the pain in her eyes every time he made up an excuse not to stay. "Aunt Grace, he's different. she told me one night, tears streaming down her face. He barely looks at me. He barely touches me. He's processing all of this, honey. It's hard for both of you. But I knew. I felt something was wrong. 2 months after the accident, Adam arrived on a Saturday afternoon. Emily was in the living room, doing exercises with the physical therapist. I was in the kitchen when I heard the door open. "Emily, we need to talk." His voice was cold, mechanical. I walked out of the kitchen and saw him standing in the living room, arms crossed. The physical therapist looked uncomfortable and stood up. "I'll leave you two alone," she muttered, quickly leaving. "Adam?" Emily looked at him with hope in her eyes. "You came early today. Can we—" "I want a divorce." The silence was deafening. Emily froze. I froze. What? Her voice came out in a whisper. "You heard me. I want a divorce," he repeated, emotionless. "I can't do this anymore, Emily. I didn't sign up for this. For this." He pointed at the wheelchair as if it were a disgusting object. Emily turned pale. Tears began to fall instantly. "Adam, please. I know it's hard, but we can—" "No," he snapped. "We can't. I tried. God knows I tried, but I can't. I can't see you like this. I can't live like this. You need care. I can't give." "Are you abandoning me?" Her voice broke. "When I need you most, you're abandoning me?" He looked away, his jaw set. "I've already called my lawyer. You'll receive the papers next week." Then I exploded. "You wretch!" I shouted, advancing on him. "You coward! She's your wife! You took vows!" "Grace, stay out of this." He looked at me coldly. "Don't you get involved? I raised this girl." I trembled with rage. When my sister died, Emily was 15. 15. I raised her, cared for her, was by her side at every important moment of her life. And when she married you, I thought she'd found someone who would love her as she deserves. You promised to love her in sickness and in health. You promised. Things have changed. Decent people don't abandon those they love. He took a step toward me, his face hard. "You think this is easy for me? You think I wanted this? I had a life, Grace. I had plans. And now I have an invalid wife who will never again be the woman I married." Emily sobbed loudly, bringing her hands to her face. "Adam, please." But he was already turning towards the door. "My lawyer will be in touch. And Grace?" He looked at me with disdain. "Get ready, because I'm asking for the house too. Half of everything is rightfully mine. This house may be in your name, but Emily lives here. It's considered marital property. This house is mine. I bought it with my sister's life insurance money." "My lawyer will sort it out," he shrugged. "And oh, another thing. Emily can't support me now, so I'm going to file for alimony too. After all, I gave up career opportunities to marry her." My blood boiled. It seemed like a joke, a bearded man like him asking for alimony. "You worm," I said with fury in my eyes. And he left, slamming the door. Emily broke down. She screamed, cried, sobbed in a way I'd never heard before. I ran to her, hugged her, held her as she fell apart in my arms. Aunt Grace, he left me. He left me. I know, my love, I know. I'm no good anymore. No one will want me like this. No, I cupped her face. Don't ever say that. You're perfect. You're strong. You're my sister's daughter, and you have the same huge heart she had. And we'll get through this. I promised your mother I'd take care of you, and I will. Always. But as I held Emily, as she cried on my shoulder, one thing became clear. Adam wasn't just asking for a divorce. He was planning to destroy us completely. He wanted to take even the house, the last thing my sister Sarah had left, the last safe haven Emily had. 3 days after Adam filed for divorce, he sat in Victoria Hale's elegant office on the 20th floor of a downtown office building. The view was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city below. But Adam barely noticed. His eyes were fixed on the woman before him. Victoria Hale was 38 years old, with perfectly brushed blonde hair, impeccable nails, and a suit that probably cost more than Adam's car. She owned a real estate investment firm and had a reputation for ruthlessness in business. And now, she was Adam's lover. "So?" Victoria asked, pouring herself an expensive scotch. "Did you file the divorce papers?" "I did," Adam replied, running a hand through his hair. "She cried, she begged. Her aunt called me every name under the sun." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Grace Mitchell, that woman is a problem, but we'll deal with her." "Victoria, I still don't understand why we can't just—" Adam hesitated. "Why do we need the house? I can file for division of assets, take half of what's possible, and that's it." Victoria set the glass down with a sharp clunk and leaned forward, her blue eyes shining with predatory intensity. "Adam, my dear, you're good in bed, but sometimes pathetic in business," she said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. "That house isn't just a house. It's a $400,000 property in a prime area that's appreciating 20% a year. But the house is in Grace's name, not Emily's." "Technically, yes," Victoria smiled, a sharp smile. "But Emily has lived there for 3 years. Since you got married, it's been your marital residence. With the right lawyers and the right strategy, we could argue that the house became part of the marital estate. Especially considering Emily contributed to the household expenses, right?" Adam nodded slowly. "She paid the electricity, water, internet bills, some renovations we did in the room." "Perfect." Victoria clapped her hands once, satisfied. "Financial contribution to the property. That gives us legal standing. My lawyer, Marcus Brennan, specializes in finding these loopholes. He's defeated more difficult cases than this. What about Grace? She'll never agree to sell." "She doesn't have to agree." Victoria stood and walked to the window, hands on her hips. "When the judge rules that the house is part of the property division, Grace will have 2 options: buy her half at market value or sell the house and split the money." Adam frowned. "Grace doesn't have $200,000 to pay me." "Exactly." Victoria turned, smiling like a predator. "That's the beauty of the plan. Grace has no money. She's a retired teacher living on a meager pension. Emily is unemployed and disabled. They won't be able to get a bank loan. So," she paused for dramatic effect, "they'll be forced to sell. And there?" "So, my dear," Victoria returned to him, running her finger along Adam's shoulder, "my company is going to make a generous offer for the property. 20% below market value, of course, because it's a quick sale, a difficult situation, blah. Blah, blah. Grace will accept because she won't have a choice. We'll buy the house, you get your half of the profit, then we'll resell it at full value and pocket another $100,000 in clean profit." Adam was silent for a moment, processing. That's brilliant." "I know." Victoria took another sip of scotch. "That's why you're with me now and not with that crying cripple." Adam flinched slightly at the cruelty of the comment, but said nothing. Victoria noticed and sighed. "Adam, don't look so guilty. Do you think Emily would have stayed with you if the situation were reversed? If you had fallen and become paraplegic? Please. Women leave men all the time when they get sick or lose their jobs. We're just being smart." "I loved her," Adam murmured. "I really did. When we got married, I really believed it would be forever. And then she fell down a ladder and ruined everything," Victoria said flatly. "Life is like that, Adam. Unpredictable, cruel. You can stay stuck in the past, or you can move forward. With me, you have a future." She sat on his lap, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Imagine, dear, with the house money plus what you already have saved, we can expand my company. You become my partner. Real estate investments, luxury properties, urban development. In 5 years, we could be making millions, millions, or you could spend the rest of your life changing your crippled wife's diapers." Adam closed his eyes. The image was too tempting. "When do we start?" Victoria smiled and kissed him. "It's already started, my love. Marcus is already preparing the petition, but there's one detail we need to take care of." "Which?" "Grace." Victoria climbed off his lap and grabbed a folder from the table. "She's stubborn. She'll fight." So we need to make sure she doesn't have any arguments. Marcus will order a psychological evaluation of Emily. What? Why? To prove that she's not mentally fit to make financial decisions, Victoria explained calmly. Severe post-accident depression, emotional dependence on her aunt, inability to manage her own life. If we can prove this, we can argue that you, as her legal husband until the divorce is finalized, should have authority over her property decisions. And you, of course, will agree to the sale of the house. Adam blinked, disturbed. Victoria, this will completely destroy you. It's already destroyed, Victoria retorted coldly. We're just documenting the obvious. Look, Adam, do you want this house or not? Because if you're having doubts now, tell me right now. I don't waste my time with weak men. The threat was clear. Adam swallowed hard. No, I want to. I'm in. Great, Victoria smiled again. Marcus will present the petition next week. In the meantime, you need to do your part. Which part? Document everything. She handed him the folder. Every time Emily has an emotional breakdown, you write it down. Every medication she takes, you photograph it. Every moment Grace makes decisions for herself, you record it. We need to build a solid case that Emily is not competent. Adam opened the folder and saw sheets of notes, forms, detailed instructions. You already had everything planned. Of course. Victoria poured herself another scotch. I plan everything, darling. That's how you win. Planning, cold execution, and zero sentimentality. She turned to him, her eyes hard. Now tell me, are you really in? Because if you waver, if you start feeling sorry, if you let guilt weaken you, we lose. And if we lose, you lose the house, you lose the money, and you lose me too. So choose now, Adam. Do you want to be a winner or a sympathetic loser? Adam looked at the folder in his hands. He thought of Emily, of her face when he'd filed for divorce, of the tears, of the pain. He thought of Grace, who stared at him with hatred and contempt. Then he thought about the money, about the future Victoria promised, about freedom. I'm in, he said firmly. Totally in. Victoria smiled, satisfied, and raised her glass. To the winners, she toasted. To the victors, Adam repeated, and drank. A week later, we received official notice of the lawsuit, so I sat at the kitchen table with Emily and a daunting stack of legal documents. The letter from Adam's lawyer, Marcus Brennan, was clear. He was asking not just for a divorce, but for 50% of the value of the house. My house. Aunt Grace. Emily held my hand, trembling. I messed up. Because of me, you're going to lose your home. No. I held her face firmly. It wasn't you. It was that worm you called your husband. And we won't lose anything. We'll fight. How? Tears streamed down her face. We don't have money for a lawyer. The medical bills, the physical therapy, the medicine. We've used up all our savings. She was right. In the last few months, between hospital bills, home equipment, the motorized wheelchair, and ongoing medications, I had spent over $30,000. My life savings vanished. I consulted 3 lawyers. The cheapest one charged $10,000 up front, money I simply didn't have. Then let's represent ourselves, I declared, opening my old laptop. Emily looked at me like I'd gone crazy. Aunt, you're not a lawyer. No, but I can read and I can research. I opened the browser. If we don't have the money to pay experts, let's become our own experts. Thus began our journey through the jungle of the legal system. Every night, after helping Emily with her physical therapy exercises, after making dinner, after putting Chloe to bed, we would sit at that table and study. Chloe was like a granddaughter to me. She was Emily and Adam's daughter, but he'd barely mentioned her since the accident. He didn't ask to see her, didn't call to see how she was doing. That child was watching her mother destroyed and her father absent, and my heart ached for her. Grandma Grace, she called me. Chloe appeared in the kitchen one night, clutching her teddy bear. Why does Mommy cry so much? I closed the laptop and picked her up. Your mother is going through a difficult time, dear, but it will be okay. Is it because of Daddy? Her little eyes were filled with tears. Doesn't he like us anymore? Emily sobbed at that. I hugged Chloe tightly. Daddy. Daddy is confused right now. But you have your mommy and you have your grandma. And we love you more than anything in the world. Are we going to lose our house? She asked softly. Amanda at school said that when her parents divorced, she lost her house. We won't miss a thing, I promised, though I wasn't sure I could keep it. Grandma will fight hard to make sure you, your mother, and I stay together, okay? She nodded and hugged my neck. After I put Chloe to bed, I returned to the table. Emily had her face in her hands. Aunt Grace, I can't stand to see my daughter suffering because of me anymore. Stop blaming yourself, I said firmly. You're not to blame for anything. Now let's focus. Look here. I spread out on the table everything we had discovered in the last few days. We discovered that in our state, only property acquired during the marriage was considered marital property. The house had been purchased by me 15 years earlier with money from my sister Sarah's life insurance. Emily had no ownership interest in it. But Adam is claiming that the house became a marital asset because you lived there, I explained, pointing to a section of the law. He's trying to use the fact that Emily paid some bills as proof of contribution to the estate. I only paid for electricity and internet, Emily muttered. It wasn't even $1,000 a month. Exactly. And I have all the receipts and bank statements to prove it. I pulled out a folder I'd organized. I pay the property taxes, the homeowner's insurance, the structural repairs, all the major expenses. The house is mine, legally and morally. Emily examined the documents, her expression growing more hopeful. So, they can't take the house? Not if we present the right evidence. I opened another document. But there's a problem. Which? Brennan's most recent petition. They're requesting a psychological evaluation of you. They claim you're mentally incapable of making decisions due to post-accident depression. Emily's blood drained from her face. What? If they can prove this, Adam could gain temporary legal authority over your financial decisions. And then, I paused, hating to say it. He could authorize the sale of the house in your name. No, they can't do that. Yes, they can, I said softly. It's a nice loophole, but we're going to fight that too. In the following weeks, our routine became a marathon of research and preparation. We watched YouTube videos on how to defend yourself in court. We downloaded sample petitions. We took notes in notebooks until the wee hours of the morning. There were times when we almost gave up. One night, 2 weeks before the hearing, Emily had a breakdown. I can't take it anymore, she screamed, throwing the papers on the floor. This is impossible. We don't know what we're doing. They have expensive lawyers, experience, resources, and what do we have? An old laptop and YouTube videos? She cried profusely, banging her fists on the wheels of her chair. We're going to lose, Aunt Grace. We're going to lose everything. And it's all my fault for marrying that monster. I knelt down beside her and held her hands. Listen, I said, looking into her eyes. Your mother, my sister Sarah, battled breast cancer for 3 years. 3 years of chemotherapy, surgeries, unbearable pain. And do you know what she said to me on her last day? Emily shook her head, crying. She said, Grace, take care of my little girl and teach her to be strong, because strong women aren't the ones who never fall. They're the ones who get up every time. I wiped Emily's tears. You fell down a ladder, honey. But you're here, alive, fighting. That already makes you stronger than Adam will ever be. Emily sobbed and hugged me. I just wish things could go back to the way they were. I know, but they won't. And that's okay, because we're going to build something new, something better. Without Adam, without lies, without betrayal. Just the 3 of us. Strong women. She nodded slowly, wiping her face. Okay, let's continue. A week before the hearing, we received another notice. Marcus Brennan had attached additional evidence, Photos of Emily's medications, audio recordings of her crying, even private messages she had sent to friends in moments of despair. How did he get that? Emily was pale, staring at the transcripts. Adam, I replied, feeling my anger boil. He documented everything. He spied on you, recorded you. He planned this from the beginning. Emily trembled violently. He betrayed me in every possible way. I held her face. But he made a mistake. Which? I smiled for the first time in weeks. He underestimated you, and he underestimated me. They think we're weak, desperate, and easy to defeat, but we're not. I took out my notebook and showed it to her. I also documented every time Adam missed Chloe's visit, every cold message he sent, every child support payment he missed, and what's more, I found out who Victoria Hale is. Emily blinked. His lover? She's not just a mistress. I opened a printout of a newspaper article. She's a real estate investment firm. She's been sued twice for unethical business practices. She specializes in buying properties from vulnerable people at below-market prices. Emily read the article, her eyes widening. So, she wants our house for her business? Exactly. This isn't about you or the marriage. It's about money. And if we can prove this in court, we'll show that Adam isn't acting in good faith. He's conspiring to steal from us. For the first time in months, I saw genuine hope in Emily's eyes. We can win? I don't know, I answered honestly, but we'll fight until the end. And if we lose, it won't be because we gave up. It will be because the system failed us. Emily nodded, determined now. Then let's do our best. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the kitchen reviewing our arguments for the 1,000th time, checking every document, every piece of evidence, every line we'd prepared. Emily showed up in her wheelchair around 3 a.m. Can't sleep either? Not at all, I admitted. She came to the table and held my hand. Aunt Grace, no matter what happens tomorrow, I want you to know. You are the most incredible person I know. You raised me when my mother died. You picked me up when I fell. And now you're fighting for me when no one else would. I love you. Tears filled my eyes. I love you too, Emily, more than anything. And tomorrow, we'll show that court they messed with the wrong women. She smiled, and for the first time in months, it was a genuine smile. Let's finish them off. We are going yes. Suddenly, the big day arrived. My heart was pounding as I entered the courtroom. I held Emily's hand tightly. She was shaking just as much as I was. Across the room, Adam smirked arrogantly, standing next to that woman, Victoria, surrounded by expensive lawyers. We were alone. Marcus Brennan, Adam's lawyer, was impeccably dressed in his $3,000 suit, organizing stacks of documents on his desk with precise, confident movements. He didn't even glance at us. Why would he? We were just two desperate women trying to play a game whose rules we barely knew. It's going to be okay, I whispered to Emily, even though my stomach was churning. She was pale, her fingers gripping the armrests of her wheelchair so tightly, her knuckles turned white. Aunt Grace, I can't do this, she whispered back, her voice breaking. They're all looking at me, at the pathetic cripple who can't even keep a husband. Stop, I ordered firmly, turning her face to mine. You're not pathetic. You're a survivor. And today, we're going to show everyone here who you really are. Across the hall, Adam leaned in to whisper something in Victoria's ear. She laughed, a low, cruel laugh. Then she looked directly at us, her blue eyes cold as ice, and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator who knows his prey has nowhere to run. Adam avoided our eyes, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he ran his hand repeatedly through his hair. Nervousness? Guilt? No. Probably just eager to get it over with and get his money. Marcus Brennan stood up and came to our table. Miss Mitchell, Mrs. Carter, he said in that smooth, professional voice that expensive lawyers use. My client is willing to settle at this time. You can avoid the public humiliation of a trial. What kind of deal? I asked suspiciously. Simple. The house will be sold. Adam will receive 40% of the net proceeds. You'll get 60. That's generous, considering he's legally entitled to 50. It's mine, I replied, controlling my anger. He has no right to anything. Marcus smiled condescendingly. Mrs. Mitchell, you're representing yourself against an experienced legal team. Trust me when I say, accept the settlement. Because if we go to trial, not only will my client get 50% of the house, but we'll also be asking for legal fees and temporary alimony. You could end up owing us money. Emily began to shake even more. Aunt Grace, maybe we should— No, I said, looking Marcus in the eye. We're not accepting any deal. See you at the trial. Marcus shrugged, as if to say, I told you so, and returned to his desk. Victoria leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand, and watched us with amused interest, as if we were an entertainment spectacle. Stand for the judge, announced the court officer. The sound of that voice made my whole body tense. It was real now. It was really happening. I stood up on shaky legs. Emily leaned against me to prop herself upright in her chair. Everyone there already knew we were going to lose everything. The side door opened and the judge entered. Firm footsteps echoed in the absolute silence of the courtroom. Impeccable black robe, erect, authoritative bearing, black hair, discreetly framed glasses. A man who looked to be in his 40s, maybe a little older. He climbed the steps to the raised counter with precise movements, carrying a leather briefcase under his arm. His eyes swept the room with the natural authority of someone accustomed to absolute power within those four walls. You may be seated, he said, his deep voice booming through the courtroom. Everyone sat down. The officer handed him the case documents. The judge adjusted his glasses and began to read, unhurriedly. Case number 2024 CV 8847, Adam Carter v. Emily Carter. Dissolution of marriage and property dispute, he read aloud, still without looking up. Representing the plaintiff, attorney Marcus Brennan. Representing the defendant. He paused, frowning. Is the defendant representing herself? He looked up briefly, scanning the room. Yes, Your Honor, I replied, standing up. My name is Grace Mitchell. I am assisting my niece, Emily Carter, in this case. He nodded briefly, returning to the documents. Okay, let's start with— And then he looked at me. Really looked. The judge stopped. Completely stopped. His expression changed instantly. His eyes widened behind his glasses. The color drained from his face as if someone had drained the blood. The papers he was holding began to tremble in his hands. No, he whispered, so low I almost didn't hear. The papers slipped from his hands and fell onto the table with a thud that echoed through the silent courtroom. Grace? His voice came out in a strangled, disbelieving whisper, filled with emotion a judge should never display. Grace Mitchell? The entire courtroom fell silent. I felt every head turn toward me. The air seemed to be sucked from the room. My body froze, my brain trying to process what was happening. That man, those eyes, those brown eyes that watched me with a mixture of shock, disbelief, and something else. Something that felt like gratitude, love, memory. I knew those eyes. My heart gave a violent leap in my chest. Ethan? I murmured, my voice weak and shaky. Ethan Rogers? Oh my God. He stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor with a loud thud. His hands gripped the edge of the counter as if he needed support to keep from falling. It's you. It's really you. Tears instantly filled my eyes. My mind raced back in time, crossing over 30 years in a second. Ethan Rogers. That little 8-year-old boy I used to babysit when I was 35. That sweet, intelligent boy with huge, curious eyes who always asked me questions about everything. Ethan, I repeated, tears streaming now. My God, you're a judge? He let out a disbelieving laugh, running his hands over his face. Grace, I can't believe. How? Across the courtroom, Marcus Brennan stood, clearly confused. Your Honor, is there a problem? Ethan didn't even look at him. His eyes were fixed on me, shining with tears. "You saved my life," he said, his voice breaking. "When I was 9, my father had been drinking. He was going to beat me with his belt, and you stepped in. You got hit instead." The memory hit me like a punch. Yes, I remembered. Ethan's father was a violent alcoholic. That night, he'd come home furious, looking for someone to take his anger out on. Ethan had dropped a glass, a childhood accident. But his father? I didn't think. I just stepped between them. I took 3 belt slaps to the back before Ethan's mother arrived and stopped her husband. After that, my mother filed for divorce, Ethan continued, his voice shaking. She said seeing you, a stranger, protect her son while she did nothing. That was what gave her courage. We left that house, Grace. Because of you. You saved me. I was crying openly now. Emily looked at me, completely lost, but squeezing my hand. I always wondered what happened to you, I managed to say. Your mother called me once, a few months later, to say thank you. She said you were doing well, and then I lost contact. She died, Ethan said softly. Cancer, when I was 16. But before that, she always talked about you, always said, Ethan, be the kind of person who gives back to the world, like Grace did for us. He wiped his own eyes, trying to regain his composure, but failing. I went to college on a scholarship. I studied law. I became a prosecutor, then a judge, and all of it. All because you gave me the chance to grow up away from that violence. You changed the course of my entire life, Grace. The courtroom was completely silent. Even Marcus Brennan seemed speechless. Adam, however, was blushing. He leaned toward Marcus and whispered something urgent. Victoria had a look of growing alarm on her face. Ethan finally seemed to realize where he was, what was happening. He looked at the documents spread out on the counter, then at Emily in the wheelchair, then at Adam and Victoria. His expression changed. The emotion was replaced by something harder, understanding, and then anger. Is that the case? He asked, his voice changing to a more professional tone, but still thick with emotion. Are they trying to take your house? The house where you live with your niece? Yes, I replied, wiping away tears. Emily is... She was married to Adam. She had an accident and became paraplegic. He filed for divorce and now claims he has a right to the house. My house. The house I bought with my sister's life insurance. Ethan looked at Adam with an expression that made the man shrink in his chair. Your Honor. Marcus Brennan stood up quickly, sensing the danger. With all due respect, if Your Honor has a personal relationship with the defendant, there is a clear conflict of interest. I request that you recuse yourself from the case. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He continued to stare at the documents, his jaw clenched. You're right, Counselor, he said finally. There's a significant conflict of interest here. Victoria smiled, satisfied. Adam visibly relaxed. But then Ethan continued. However, before I recuse myself, I will exercise my judicial prerogative to evaluate the basic merits of this case. Marcus frowned. Your Honor, I don't... Silence, Ethan ordered, and the lawyer immediately fell silent. Ethan took the documents and began to read them carefully. The more he read, the darker his expression. The property in question was acquired by Miss Grace Mitchell in 2010, 15 years before their marriage, he read aloud. It was purchased with proceeds from a life insurance policy. Plaintiff claims the property became marital property due to minimum monthly financial contributions toward household expenses. He looked up at Marcus. Attorney, was your client paying less than $800 a month in utilities while residing in a property valued at $400,000? Marcus adjusted his tie uncomfortably. Your Honor, the law provides that contributions to assets, regardless of the value. I know the law, Counselor, Ethan said coldly. Go on. He went back to reading, and I saw his hands grip the papers with increasing force. The plaintiff also requests a psychological evaluation of the defendant, alleging mental incapacity and excessive emotional dependence. His voice was dangerously low. And he attached as evidence secret recordings of private moments of emotional vulnerability. He looked at Adam with pure contempt. Mr. Carter, Did you record your wife without consent during a period of extreme trauma and present that as evidence of mental incompetence? Adam opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Your Honor, Marcus quickly intervened, the recordings were obtained legally, from within the marital residence. I don't care if it was legal, Ethan practically growled. I'm questioning the ethics of it. I'm questioning the humanity of it. He threw the papers on the table and stood up. This hearing is adjourned immediately. What? Victoria jumped to her feet. You can't. Silence in my courtroom. Ethan slammed his gavel down. I'm the judge here, and I decide what I can and can't do. This hearing is suspended until I determine if there is a legal basis for this case to continue. Your Honor, this is illegal, Marcus protested. My client has rights. Your client has the right to a fair trial, and I have a duty to ensure that justice is served. Ethan glared at him. And before I allow this case to proceed, I will personally review all the documentation, all the relevant case law, and ensure that we are not allowing this court to be used as a tool for abuse. He turned to me. Miss Mitchell, you and your niece will have adequate time to prepare your defense. I will request the court to provide free legal assistance if necessary. Your Honor, this is absurd. Marcus was blushing now. Your Honor is clearly biased. Bias in favor of justice, Counselor. Ethan banged the gavel again. And if you have a problem with my decisions, you can appeal. Until then, this hearing is suspended. Next date to be set in 30 days. He turned to the court officer. I request that a temporary protective order be issued, preventing the sale or transfer of the property in question until the case is resolved. This is outrageous, Victoria shouted, standing up. You can't do this. We have rights. Let's appeal. Let's go to the ethics committee. Ethan looked at her with icy eyes. Ma'am, if you yell in my office again, I'll hold you in contempt of court. Is that clear? Victoria gritted her teeth, shaking with rage. Adam was pale, looking around as if searching for a way out. Ethan banged the gavel for the last time. Hearing adjourned. Get out of my room. As everyone began to move, Ethan looked at me one last time. His eyes were filled with determination. Grace, he said softly, breaking protocol completely. You saved my life once. I won't let anyone destroy yours now. And with that, he walked out of the courtroom, leaving behind a stunned silence. Emily grabbed me, crying. Aunt Grace, what just happened? I hugged her, still in shock. I think we just got a defender, honey. I think we just got a chance. Victoria was shaking with rage as she left the courtroom. Her heels clicked violently on the marble floor of the hallway, each step echoing like a gunshot. Adam ran after her, trying to keep up. Victoria, wait. No. She whirled around, her finger pointed at his face. Don't ask me to wait. You told me this would be easy. You promised me this house would be ours in 3 weeks. People in the hallway turned to look. Marcus Brennan, a few steps behind, discreetly gestured for them to move away. Let's go to my office, he suggested calmly. Now. 20 minutes later, the 3 of them were in Marcus's law office on the 23rd floor. Victoria stood by the window, arms crossed, radiating fury. Adam was slumped in an armchair, his head in his hands. Marcus sat behind his desk, fingers intertwined, thoughtful. That was a disaster, Victoria said, her voice sharp. A complete disaster. That judge, that meddler is clearly on their side. Technically, he didn't do anything illegal, Marcus observed calmly. He has the right to suspend a hearing to review the case, and a temporary protective order on property is standard procedure in marital property disputes. Standard procedure? Victoria turned, her eyes flashing. He practically cried in front of the entire courtroom. He called the old woman by her first name. He said she saved his life. How is that not bias? Marcus sighed. It is bias, yes, and that's why we're going to use it. Adam raised his head. How? Marcus leaned forward, a calculating expression on his face. Judge Ethan Rogers made a fatal error. He publicly demonstrated a personal connection with the opposing party. Not only that, he displayed emotion, bias, and even made disparaging comments about our case before even hearing full arguments. Victoria approached the table, interested now. So, can we remove him from the case? Not only that, Marcus smiled coldly. We can use this to discredit any decision he makes. He's created the perfect basis for an appeal. But more importantly, we can request his dismissal immediately, before he has a chance to review the case. Explain, Victoria ordered. Marcus opened a drawer and took out a form. I'm going to file a motion to recuse myself on the grounds of conflict of interest. I'm going to cite his entire demeanor at the hearing, the emotional acknowledgement, the comments about saving lives, the clear display of personal gratitude toward Ms. Mitchell. All of this is documented in the court record. What's up? Adam asked. Then another judge will be assigned to the case, a judge who has absolutely no connection to Grace Mitchell, Marcus explained. And even better, I'll include in the petition a request for expedited proceedings, arguing that the 30-day stay violates my client's rights and was based on emotional bias, not due process. Victoria smiled for the first time since they left the courthouse. How long will this take? If I file the petition tomorrow, with an urgent request? A week? Maybe 2. The court can't ignore such an obvious conflict of interest. Adam stood up, pacing nervously around the room. But what if the new judge is also sympathetic to them? What if... It won't be, Victoria cut in, turning to Marcus. We'll make sure of it. How much does it cost to buy information about available judges? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Buy information? Don't play innocent, Marcus, Victoria said coldly. You've been in this business for 20 years. You know people. You know which judges are soft, which have pro-private views, which have no patience for emotional issues. Marcus was silent for a moment, then nodded slowly. I have contacts. I can find out which judge will likely be appointed and what their track record is. Great. Victoria pulled out a chair and sat down. Do that, and in the meantime, I want you to find everything you can about Grace Mitchell and Emily Carter. Every financial failure, every mistake, every vulnerability. I want ammunition. I already have plenty of ammunition. Marcus pointed to a thick folder on the table. Adam's recordings, Emily's medical records, the evidence of emotional instability. It's not enough, Victoria interrupted. The next judge can't have any reason to feel sorry for them. So we need to paint the full picture. Grace is a manipulative meddler who is using her disabled niece to secure property that legally belongs in part to Adam. Emily is an emotional and financial burden who is preventing Adam from moving forward with his life. Adam grimaced. Victoria, this is... What, Adam? She turned to him, her eyes cold. Is it cruel? It's true. She is a burden. You're paying child support to a woman who can't even work, who can't even take care of her own daughter properly. You have every right to seek a fair division of assets. She became paraplegic by accident. And do I care? Victoria practically screamed. Do you want this house or not? Because if you're starting to soften now, let me know. I don't waste my time with weaklings. Adam swallowed hard and looked at the floor. I want the house. Then behave like it. Victoria stood up and began pacing the room, thinking aloud. Marcus, in your motion for recusal, I want you to emphasize something else. What? Grace and Emily are opportunists, she paused, her eyes shining. Think about it. What an incredible coincidence that the judge assigned to the case has a long-standing emotional connection with the defendant. How do we know they didn't manipulate this somehow? How do we know Grace didn't figure out who the judge would be beforehand and plan this whole scene? Marcus frowned. Do you really think that... It doesn't matter what I think. Victoria smiled coldly. What matters is sowing doubt. What matters is making the next judge question whether they are the helpless victims they appear to be or whether they are expert manipulators. Understand? Marcus nodded slowly, impressed. I see. It's brilliant, actually. Even if we don't have proof, the mere suggestion will make the next judge more skeptical of it. Exactly. Victoria returned to her chair and sat down, crossing her legs. Adam, do you have anything else on Emily we can use? Adam hesitated. She's been texting, asking to talk, saying she still loves me. Perfect, Victoria smiled. This shows continued emotional instability. Keeping all these messages. Marcus, can you use this? I can. Marcus made notes. I'll include it in the documentation as evidence that Ms. Carter is not in the right emotional state to make rational legal decisions. What about the child? Victoria asked. Chloe, right? How can we use that? Adam stiffened. Leave my daughter out of this. She's already at it, Victoria retorted. She lives in the house in question. She's living proof that Emily can't properly care for a child. When was the last time you saw your daughter, Adam? 2 weeks ago. Great. So you can testify that you're concerned for Chloe's well-being, living in an unstable environment with a depressed and incapacitated mother and an aunt who's too old to actively care for a young child. Victoria looked at Marcus. Can this be used? Marcus paused, clearly uncomfortable. You can, but that will open up the custody issue, and I'm not sure if— Do it, Victoria ordered. It doesn't have to be a formal custody petition. Just mention concerns, more pressure on them. More reasons for the judge to see that the best solution is to liquidate the estate, allowing everyone to move on with their lives. Adam was pale now. Victoria, I'm not taking Chloe away from Emily. I'm not going to do that. No one's telling you to do this, Victoria said calmly. We're just suggesting there are concerns. Pressure tactic. They'll be so desperate to keep Chloe that they'll agree to any deal. She turned to Marcus. How long does it take to prepare all the appeal documentation? I can have it ready by tomorrow afternoon, Marcus replied. Great. Submit it as soon as you're ready. I want this case in front of a new judge before Ethan Rogers has time to do any analysis that favors them. Victoria grabbed her purse. And Marcus, don't hold back. Hire private investigators if necessary. I want everything on Grace Mitchell. Where she worked, who she's been involved with, if she has any debts, if she's ever had legal trouble. Anything we can use. It will cost— I know how much it's going to cost, Victoria practically growled, and I'm going to pay it, because this house is worth $400,000, Marcus. And I'm not going to lose $400,000 because some sentimental judge had an emotional moment in court. Is that clear? Crystal clear. 3 days later, Marcus Brennan was in his office again, this time on the phone with a contact at the courthouse. So the appeal was accepted? He asked, taking notes. Yes, the voice on the other end confirmed. The motion for judicial recusal has been granted. Judge Ethan Rogers has been removed from the case due to a conflict of interest. The case will be reassigned tomorrow. And do you have any idea which judge it will go to? There was a pause. Officially, I can't say. But unofficially, probably to Judge Harold Blackwood. Marcus smiled. He knew Harold Blackwood, a man in his 60s, conservative, strict with legal procedures, with no patience for emotional causes. Perfect. Thanks for the information, Marcus said and hung up. He immediately called Victoria. We have a new judge, Harold Blackwood. So what, is he good for us? Very good, Marcus confirmed. He's known for following the law to the letter, disregarding emotional factors. In divorce cases, he always favors mathematical division of assets. He has no history of sympathizing with difficult cases. Perfect, Victoria said on the other end. When's the next hearing? It hasn't been scheduled yet, but since we filed an urgent request, it should be within 2 weeks at most. Great. And the investigators? Did they find anything on Grace? Marcus leafed through some papers on his desk. Yes, some interesting things. Grace Mitchell, 65, retired teacher. She had financial problems 5 years ago, credit card debt, late payments, nothing criminal, but it shows she's not exactly financially stable. That is good? It's useful, Marcus confirmed. We can argue that she's desperate for money and is therefore manipulating Emily to keep the house, which is worth a fortune. We also discover that she's never married and has no children of her own. We can paint the picture of a lonely woman who has become unhealthily attached to her niece. I love that, Victoria laughed. Go on. About Emily. In addition to the medical and emotional issues we've already documented, we discovered that she's taking heavy-duty antidepressants, 5 different medications. This reinforces our argument for mental instability. And the child? Chloe? School records show that she has missed several days in recent weeks. There is no evidence of severe neglect, but we can suggest that the home environment is negatively affecting her well-being. Victoria was silent for a moment, processing. Marcus, I want you to be brutal at the next hearing. No mercy. I want you to expose every weakness, every flaw, every moment of vulnerability. I want the judge to see Grace as manipulative and Emily as incompetent. Understand? I understood. And one last thing, Victoria added. Prepare witnesses. I want people who can testify about Emily's mental state. Her physical therapist, if possible. Someone who can say she's not cooperating with the treatment, that she's giving in to depression. The physical therapist may not agree to testify against her own patient. Then find someone else, Victoria cut in. A neighbor, a store employee, anyone who interacted with Emily and can comment on her condition. It doesn't have to be malicious, just concerning. She seemed so lost. She was crying at the supermarket. That sort of thing. Marcus took more notes. I'll work on it. Great. Keep me posted. A week later, the official notification arrived at home. It was a letter from the Court of Justice, Central District. I was in shock when I started reading. It is hereby notified that, in compliance with the request for judicial recusal due to conflict of interest, petition number 2134, Judge Ethan Rogers has been removed from this case. The case has been reassigned to the Honorable Judge Harold Blackwood. A new hearing is scheduled for October 13th, 2025 at 10 Gagos A. Monsieur Grace read the notification 3 times, feeling her stomach sink with each reading. They did it, she murmured. They took Ethan off the case. Emily, sitting at the table next to her, began to cry silently. It's over then. We lost. No. Grace held her hand tightly. It's not over. We still have our arguments, our evidence. The law didn't change just because the judge did. But even as she said this, Grace felt fear rising in her chest. Ethan had given them hope. For the first time, they felt that maybe, just maybe, justice might be on their side. Now that hope had been taken away. And there were only 2 weeks left until they faced an unknown judge. A judge who didn't know them, who owed them nothing, who had no reason to care. Aunt Grace, Emily whispered, her voice breaking. I'm so scared. Grace hugged her niece, hiding her own tears in her hair. Me too, dear. Me too. 3 days had passed since we received the notification that Ethan had been removed from the case. 3 days of growing despair, of sleepless nights, of staring at the documents scattered on the desk and feeling ourselves sink deeper and deeper. I was in the kitchen making breakfast when the doorbell rang. It was only 7 in the morning. Who could be so early? I wiped my hands on my apron and went to answer it, expecting perhaps a mailman or some pushy salesperson. I opened the door and froze. Ethan Rogers stood on my porch wearing jeans and a casual shirt, so different from the judge's robes he'd been wearing just days ago. He held a brown leather briefcase and looked nervous. His eyes, those same kind eyes I'd known for over 30 years, were filled with determination. Grace, he said simply. Ethan, I managed to say, completely confused. What are you? You shouldn't be here. They removed you from the case. You can't have contact with... I can, actually, he interrupted me gently, because I'm no longer the judge in your case. I know, they assigned another... No, Grace, you don't understand. He took a deep breath. I'm no longer a judge, period. I resigned from the bench yesterday. My world stopped. You... What? Ethan, don't... Can I come in? He asked. I need to talk to you and Emily. It's important. Still dazed, I made room for him. Emily was in the living room, doing her morning stretches in her wheelchair. When she saw Ethan, her eyes widened. Judge Rogers? What? Don't call me Judge anymore, he said with a small smile. Not anymore. You can just call me Ethan. We sat down, Emily and I on the couch, Ethan in the chair opposite. He placed the folder on the coffee table, but didn't open it immediately. Instead, he looked at me for a long moment, as if gathering his thoughts. "Grace," he began, his voice thick with emotion, "I've spent the last 3 days trying to convince myself there was another way, that I could help you somehow without doing what I'm about to do. But there is no other way." My heart was racing. "Ethan, what are you talking about?" He leaned forward, hands clasped together. "I've reviewed your entire case, every document, every petition, every argument, and it's crystal clear what Adam and that woman Victoria are doing. They're using the legal system as a weapon to destroy you both. It's not about justice. It's pure cruelty disguised as legality." Tears began to form in my eyes, but I blinked them back. "We know that, Ethan. But there's nothing we can do. We don't have money for lawyers. We don't have—" "You have it now," he interrupted me. "You have me." Emily frowned. "What? You said you're not a judge anymore, so—" "I'm a lawyer," Ethan explained. "Before becoming a judge, I practiced family law for 10 years, and yesterday I reinstated my license to practice law. Officially, as of today, I'm your defense attorney." The silence that followed was absolute. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Emily looked at me, then at Ethan, her mouth agape. You abandoned your position as a judge. For us?" My voice came out as a strangled whisper. "It wasn't abandonment," Ethan corrected gently. "It was a choice. The right choice." "But your career," I began, feeling the tears finally well up. "Ethan, you've worked years to get where you are. You can't throw it all away for you?" He interrupted me again, this time more firmly. "Grace, look at me." I looked, my vision blurred with tears. "Do you remember that night?" he asked softly. "When I was 9? When my father was drunk and was going to beat me with his belt?" I nodded, unable to speak. "You stood in my way," he continued, his voice breaking slightly. "You, a 22-year-old woman who had known me for only a few months, literally used your own body as a shield. You took 3 belts to the back. 3. For me." His tears started falling too. "That night changed my entire life, Grace. Because of you, my mother found the courage to file for divorce. Because of you, I grew up far from that violence. Because of you, I had the chance to study, to become someone. Everything I am today, I owe to you. Ethan." I sobbed. "You think I'm going to sit in my comfortable office and let those parasites destroy you?" He stood up, his voice rising in intensity. "You think my career is worth more than paying back the person who saved me?" He knelt in front of me, holding my hands. "Grace Mitchell, you're the reason I became a judge, because you showed me what true justice is. It's not blindly following the law. It's doing what's right, even when it's hard, even when it costs something." I was openly crying now, as was Emily beside me. "And now," Ethan continued, wiping away his own tears, "it's my turn to do what's right, even if it costs me my career as a judge, even if people say it's inappropriate, even if I'm investigated by the Bar Association. I don't care, because you deserve someone fighting for you with the same ferocity you fought for me." He stood up and picked up the folder. "So, here's what's going to happen. I've already contacted 2 colleagues who specialize in family law. They've agreed to work with me pro bono. That means free of charge," he explained, seeing our confusion. "The 3 of us will build a defense so solid that Adam and Victoria won't know what hit them." He opened the folder and began taking out organized documents. "I've reviewed everything you prepared, and you did an incredible job considering you were alone. But now, we're going further. We're going to prove not only that the house is legally yours, Grace, but also expose the abusive tactics they're using." Emily wiped her face with trembling hands. "But the new judge, this Blackwood, Marcus said he's strict, that he doesn't care about—" "With emotions?" Ethan added. "It's true. Harold Blackwood follows the letter of the law. But you know what? The law is on our side. The property was acquired by Grace before the marriage. Your financial contributions were minimal. And as for this ridiculous narrative about mental instability," he took out another document. "We'll fight back. I'll bring in medical experts to testify that post-traumatic depression is completely normal and doesn't indicate incompetence. I'll show that Emily is actively participating in physical therapy, caring for Chloe, and managing her life. And I'll expose how exploitative and cruel it is for Adam to use secret recordings of vulnerable moments as evidence. For the first time in months, I felt something I had forgotten what it felt like. Hope. Real hope. Not the forced optimism I'd been trying to maintain to keep from falling apart, but genuine hope that maybe, just maybe, we could actually beat this. Ethan, I finally managed to say, I don't know how to thank you. No need, he smiled through his tears. You already thanked me over 30 years ago when you saved me. Now I'm just paying off the debt. Emily reached out to him. Why are you so good? Ethan held her hand gently. I'm not good, Emily. I'm just someone who learned from the best teacher. He looked at me. That some things are worth more than careers or reputations. Some things, like doing the right thing, are worth everything. We stayed like that for a moment, the three of us, crying and laughing at the same time, hugging each other in that room we had almost lost hope of keeping. When do we start? I asked, wiping my face. Now, Ethan said, picking up a pen. We have a little over a week until the Blackwood hearing. We're going to use every minute. I'll need every document you've prepared, every receipt, every record. And you're both going to have to trust me completely. We trust, Emily said immediately. Yes, I agreed, my voice firm now. We trust you, Ethan. It was Thursday afternoon, 3 days after Ethan became our lawyer. We were in the living room, papers scattered everywhere, when Chloe came home from school. Hi, my beautiful! Emily opened her arms, and Chloe ran to hug her. How was school? It was good, Chloe replied, but I noticed something different about her. She seemed nervous, anxious. Are you okay, dear? I asked, studying her face. Chloe bit her lip, looked at me, then at her mother, and finally at Ethan, who was organizing documents on the coffee table. Grandma Grace, she began hesitantly. Can I speak to Mr. Ethan? Alone? My heart skipped a beat. What had happened? Sure, honey, Emily said, though I could see the worry in her eyes. Let's go to the kitchen, Grandma. I left the room with Emily, but I confess that I stayed close to the door, wanting to protect my granddaughter from anything that might be worrying her. From the other side of the door, I heard Ethan kneel down, probably to be at Chloe's level. What's wrong, Chloe? His voice was gentle. You can tell me. Chloe's small voice. Mr. Ethan, you're going to help my mom and grandma in court, right? You're going to make Dad stop being mean? I'll do my best, Ethan replied. Why are you asking? Because I have something that can help. I heard the sound of a zipper being opened, probably her backpack. Last weekend, I went to Dad's house, Chloe continued, and I could hear the nervousness in her voice. And I heard him and that woman, Victoria, talking. They were saying bad things. About stealing from our house, about lying to the judge, about making Mom look crazy when she's not. My blood ran cold. Emily grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. And then, Chloe continued, I remembered a show I saw on TV where the detective recorded people talking about the bad things they'd done. So I grabbed my tablet and recorded it. I hid behind the big plant and recorded everything they said. There was silence on the other end. Chloe, Ethan's voice sounded strained. When did this happen? Friday night. They didn't know I was listening. That was very dangerous, Chloe. If they had discovered you. I know. Her voice broke a little. But I don't want to lose my home, Mr. Ethan. And I don't want anyone to hurt my mom and grandma. So I did what I had to do. Like Grandma always says, brave people do what needs to be done, even when they're scared. I felt tears fill my eyes. My granddaughter. My brave Chloe. Can you show me the recording? Ethan asked. Yes, it's here. There were sounds of the tablet moving, then a click. And then, coming out of the tablet's tiny speaker, came Victoria Hale's voice, clear and crisp. Marcus called today. The hearing is next week. He's confident. Adam's voice replied, "And it should be. Grace and Emily have what? Nothing. No real lawyer, no solid defense. We're going to crush them." Emily covered her mouth with her hands, stifling a sob. I held her, my heart breaking to hear the man she had loved speak about us like that. The recording continued. Victoria laughed about calling me a nosy old woman. They talked about the perfect scam to force the sale of the house. And then came the part that made my blood boil. "Do you think Blackwood will rule in our favor for sure?" Adam's voice. Marcus assured me. Blackwood is predictable. He follows the law to the letter, without sentimentality. "And technically, you do have legal arguments, even if they are weak. But with the evidence we fabricated about Emily's mental instability." "Do we manufacture?" Victoria laughed at the recording. "Adam, honey, do you really think those emotional recordings and some medication would be enough? Please." Marcus adjusted some documents. Nothing illegal, of course, just strategically edited. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had fabricated evidence, edited documents, planned the whole thing as a coup. The recording continued for a few more minutes, each word more damning than the last. Victoria talked about buying the house below market value through her company. Adam expressed guilt, but was convinced by Victoria that he had the right to rebuild his life. Finally, the recording ended. The silence on the other side of the door was deafening. Then I heard Ethan. "Chloe Mitchell Carter." His voice was thick with emotion. "You just saved your family." "I saved it? Really?" "Yes. What you recorded is evidence of conspiracy to commit procedural fraud, document forgery, and bad faith. With this, we'll not only win the case, we'll completely destroy their defense." I couldn't take it anymore. I opened the door and walked into the room, Emily following right behind me in her wheelchair. Chloe was standing next to Ethan, holding the tablet, tears streaming down her face. "Grandma!" She ran to me. "Did you hear? Did I help?" I took my granddaughter in my arms and hugged her so tightly that I probably hurt her. "You helped more than you can imagine, my love. You were so brave, so incredibly brave." Emily was crying in her chair, her arms outstretched. I brought Chloe to her, and they hugged, sobbing. Ethan stood, holding the tablet, his face a mask of controlled fury. "Grace, Emily," he said, his voice low but filled with determination. "You need to hear this from beginning to end." We sat, Chloe on Emily's lap, me beside them on the couch, as Ethan played the recording again through the TV sound system. 19 minutes. 19 minutes of pure, incontrovertible evidence of Adam and Victoria's conspiracy. By the time he finished, I was shaking with rage. Emily was white as a sheet. Chloe was quiet, but I could tell she understood the gravity of what she'd done. Emily could barely speak. "He's really doing this. Adam is really trying to destroy us with lies." "Not just lies," Ethan said coldly. "Documented fraud. Marcus Brennan, as an attorney, altered evidence. This is a very serious ethical violation. He could be disqualified from the bar for it." He immediately started making copies of the recording on his laptop. "And Victoria admitted conspiracy to commit fraud," he continued. "Intention to purchase the property at a manipulated price. Adam is complicit in all of this." He looked at us, and for the first time since I'd seen him again, I saw something dangerous in his eyes. A righteous fury. They picked the wrong people to attack, and now they're going to pay for it. "What are we going to do?" I asked. "We'll use this at the hearing," Ethan said, saving the files in multiple locations. "But strategically. I won't reveal we have it until the perfect moment. I'll let Marcus present all their fabricated evidence. I'll let them dig their own hole. And then," he smiled, but it was a cold smile, "then I'll blow it all up in their faces." Emily grabbed my hand, squeezing it tightly. "Ethan, but Chloe, if we use this, Adam will know she recorded it. He might—" "Can he be mad?" Ethan finished. "Yes, but he can't legally do anything to her. And honestly, after this audio is played in court, Adam will have much bigger problems than being mad at his daughter. He could face criminal charges. He knelt in front of Chloe. "Chloe, do you understand that when we use this recording, your father will know it was you who did this?" Chloe nodded seriously. "I understand, Mr. Ethan. And you still want me to use it? Even though you know he might get upset?" Chloe looked at her mother in the wheelchair, then at me, then back at Ethan. "My daddy is doing bad things," she said with impressive clarity for an 8-year-old. "And when people do bad things, they need to be stopped. The teacher taught you that. So yes, use it." Ethan smiled, genuinely this time. "You're extraordinary, you know that? She's my granddaughter," he said proudly, hugging Chloe. "She has the blood of the strong women in the family." We spent the rest of that afternoon analyzing every second of the recording, preparing exactly how and when to present it. That night, after I put Chloe to bed, I sat with Emily in the living room. "Our daughter recorded her own father confessing to a crime," Emily said softly, staring into space. This is surreal." "I know," I held her hand. "But it's also proof that we raised a brave girl. A girl who knows the difference between right and wrong, even when the wrong comes from her own father." Emily began to cry silently. "How did he become this, Aunt Grace? The man I loved. How did he become a monster?" "He wasn't a monster," I replied softly. "But he became one when he chose money and Victoria over doing what was right. People reveal themselves in crises, Emily. And Adam revealed himself to be a coward." She nodded, wiping away her tears. "At least now we have a real chance." "Not just a chance," I corrected. "We have the victory, thanks to our brave Chloe." And as night fell over our home, which no one was going to take from us, I knew the tide had turned. Adam and Victoria had underestimated not only me and Emily, they had underestimated our entire family. The day of the hearing dawned cold and gray. I woke at 5 a.m, my stomach churning with nervousness. I hadn't been able to sleep well, spending the entire night mentally replaying everything that might happen. I made strong coffee and sat at the kitchen table, looking out the window at the garden I had planted 15 years ago. This is my home, I thought, and I will fight to the end for it. Emily appeared shortly after, looking as tired as I felt. "Couldn't sleep either?" I asked. She shook her head. "I spent the whole night thinking about what was going to happen today." "It's going to be okay," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We have Ethan, and we have the recording. What if the judge doesn't accept the recording as evidence? What if he says it's illegal because Chloe recorded it without consent?" It was a concern I had too. Ethan assured us that in our state, only one party needed to consent to the recording, and Chloe was present, so technically it was legal. But still, "Let's trust Ethan," I replied. "He knows what he's doing." At 8 a.m, Ethan arrived. He was wearing an impeccable dark suit, looking every inch the powerful lawyer. But when he looked at us, his eyes held that familiar gentleness. "Ready?" "As ready as we can be," I replied. We left Chloe with a trusted neighbor. We didn't want her to be at the courthouse to see what was about to happen, and left. The courtroom was exactly as I remembered it from the first hearing. Intimidating, cold, imposing. But this time, when we entered, we weren't alone. Ethan walked between Emily and me, carrying his leather briefcase, radiating confidence, and then I saw them. Adam was across the hall from me, along with Victoria and Marcus Brennan. There were 2 other lawyers, too, whom I didn't recognize. Victoria looked impeccable in a beige suit, her hair perfectly brushed, and an expression of absolute confidence on her face. Adam looked at me for a brief second, then quickly looked away. Coward. Marcus Brennan walked towards us, that fake professional smile on his face. "Miss Mitchell, Mrs. Carter," he greeted, then looked at Ethan. "And you must be—" "Wait. Ethan Rogers? The judge?" "Former judge," Ethan corrected coldly. "Now I'm their defense attorney." Marcus's expression changed instantly. The smile disappeared. "You can't be serious." "Completely serious. All documents are in order. Check if you want." Marcus glanced at Victoria, who had approached. She studied Ethan with calculating eyes. So the sentimental little judge decided to step down from his pedestal and get his hands dirty, she said, her voice dripping with contempt. How touching. And the unscrupulous businesswoman decided to steal from vulnerable women, Ethan retorted calmly. How predictable. Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously, but before she could respond, the court official announced, "Standing for Judge Harold Blackwood." We all stood up. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear the pulse in my ears. Judge Blackwood entered. He was a man in his 60s, with completely white hair, a stern face, and wire-rimmed glasses. He walked up to the bench with stiff, precise movements, without looking at anyone. When he finally sat up and looked around the room, his eyes were cold as stone. "Sit down," he ordered, his voice deep and emotionless. Everyone sat down. Case number 2024, CV 8847, Adam Carter versus Emily Carter, with Grace Mitchell as an interested party, he read in a monotone. Dissolution of marriage and property dispute. He looked over his glasses at our table. "I see there's been a change in legal representation. Mr. Rogers, are you aware that your history with this case may be considered inappropriate?" Ethan stood up calmly. "Yes, Your Honor, I am aware. All waiver and transfer of status documents have been duly filed. There is no legal conflict in my representation of the defendants." Blackwood studied him for a long moment, then nodded briefly. "Very well, let us proceed. Attorney Brennan, you may present your opening." Marcus stood up, adjusted his tie, and began. And for the next 20 minutes, I had to sit and listen as he painted Emily as a mentally unstable person, and me as a manipulator who was exploiting my niece to keep property that legally belonged in part to Adam. "Your Honor," Marcus said in that soft, convincing voice, "my client is asking for nothing more than what the law guarantees him. During the marriage, the marital residence was established on Miss Mitchell's property. My client and Mrs. Carter contributed financially to the upkeep of that property. Therefore, under state law," he continued, citing precedents, similar cases, legal interpretations. It all sounded so official, so convincing. Then he began to present the evidence of Emily's mental instability. "Your Honor, I would like to submit to the court transcripts of messages sent by Ms. Carter in which she expresses suicidal thoughts, an inability to care for herself, and excessive dependence on others." I felt Emily stiffen beside me. Ethan placed a reassuring hand over hers and whispered, "Let him present everything. Trust me." Marcus continued, piling on evidence after evidence. Recordings of Emily crying, photos of medications, written statements from people claiming to have seen Emily in a worrisome state. It was an impressive performance. I could see that even Judge Blackwood was paying attention, taking notes. Finally, Marcus concluded, "In short, Your Honor, my client seeks only what is fair, an equitable division of assets, considering that Ms. Carter is not in a position to make appropriate financial decisions, and that Ms. Mitchell has taken advantage of the situation to maintain complete control over a property that must be divided. We request that the court order the sale of the property and an equal division of the proceeds." He sat down, looking extremely pleased with himself. Victoria was smiling. Adam looked relieved. Judge Blackwood looked at our table. "Mr. Rogers, your opening." Ethan stood slowly, almost casually. He didn't have Marcus's performative urgency. Instead, there was something quietly dangerous in his calm. "Your Honor," he began, his voice firm and clear, "my colleague has just presented an impressive narrative, convincing even. If anyone were to listen only to his side, they might truly believe my client is asking for something reasonable." He paused, letting the silence weigh down the room. "But there's a problem with well-constructed narratives, Your Honor. Sometimes they're just that, constructed, fabricated, lies wrapped in legal jargon." Marcus stood up immediately. "Objection, Your Honor. The lawyer is making baseless accusations." "I'm setting the scene, Your Honor," Ethan interrupted calmly. "And I'm going to back up every word I said." Blackwood tapped the gavel lightly. "Objection overruled. Continue, Mr. Rogers. But watch your words. Yes, Your Honor. Ethan nodded. Let me present the facts, not the fiction. He walked to the center of the courtroom without notes, speaking directly to the judge. The property in question was purchased by Miss Grace Mitchell in 2010, using proceeds from the life insurance of her late sister, Sarah Mitchell. 15 years before the marriage between Adam Carter and Emily Carter, the deed is solely in Miss Mitchell's name. During the marriage, Emily and Adam resided on the property, but their financial contributions were limited to monthly utility bills, electricity, internet, water, totaling less than $800 per month. He turned to Marcus. The law is clear, Your Honor. Property acquired before marriage does not constitute marital property unless there is a substantial contribution that establishes joint ownership. $800 a month on a $400,000 estate does not constitute a substantial contribution. Period. Marcus started to get up, but Ethan continued before he could object. As for Ms. Carter's claim of mental instability, I will address that in detail. But first, Your Honor, I would like to establish the true nature of this case. He returned to our table and picked up his briefcase. This isn't a case about fair division of assets. It's a case about two people, he pointed at Adam and Victoria, using the legal system as a weapon to steal property from vulnerable women. Objection. Marcus stood up, red. That's defamatory. I'll prove it, Ethan said calmly. Blackwood frowned. This is a serious accusation, Mr. Rogers. I hope you have solid evidence. I do, Your Honor, and I will present them methodically. For the next 30 minutes, Ethan systematically dismantled Marcus's every argument. He presented financial documents showing that I had paid the entire mortgage, all taxes, and all structural repairs. He showed that Emily and Adam had only contributed basic living expenses. I brought in a psychologist as an expert witness who explained that post-traumatic depression is completely normal and does not indicate mental incompetence. Dr. Helena Morrison, Ethan asked the psychologist, in your professional opinion, based on the medical records you have reviewed, is Ms. Emily Carter mentally incapable of making financial decisions? Absolutely not, Dr. Morrison replied firmly. Mrs. Carter suffered severe physical trauma and is dealing with reactive depression, which is a completely normal response. She is undergoing treatment, functioning adequately in her daily life, caring for her daughter. There is absolutely no indication of mental incompetence. What about using recordings of private emotional moments as evidence of instability? Dr. Morrison became visibly irritated. It's exploitative and unethical. We all have moments of emotional vulnerability. Using that against someone, especially someone who has experienced trauma, is, she paused, choosing her words, cruel and has no legitimate diagnostic value. Marcus tried to cross-examine, but Dr. Morrison stood her ground firmly. As she stepped down from the witness stand, I could see Blackwood was paying attention. His expression was still neutral, but he was taking copious notes. Adam was turning pale. Victoria maintained her composure, but I could see tension in her shoulders. Then Ethan returned to the center of the courtroom. Your Honor, I have thus far established that 1. The property is legally Ms. Mitchell's. 2. Plaintiff's contributions were minimal. And 3. The claim of mental instability is baseless and exploitative. He paused dramatically. But now I need to reveal something much more serious, something that not only invalidates the author's case, but potentially constitutes a crime. The entire courtroom fell silent. Even Blackwood looked up, interested. Marcus stood up slowly. Your Honor, I don't know what Mr. Rogers is implying, but I'm not insinuating anything, Ethan snapped. I'm stating facts. Facts I have documented. He returned to our table and picked up a small audio device he had prepared. Your Honor, I request permission to play an audio recording relevant to this case. Victoria suddenly leaned forward, looking alarmed. Adam frowned in confusion. Marcus looked worried. Your Honor, without knowing the origin and context of this recording, I object to its admission. The recording was obtained legally, Ethan said. A party present during the conversation consented to the recording as permitted by state law. It is completely admissible. Blackwood considered for a moment. I'll allow it, but Mr. Rogers, this is important and better be relevant. It is devastatingly relevant, Your Honor. Ethan connected the device to the courthouse PA system. My heart was pounding so hard in my chest, I thought everyone could hear it. Emily held my hand so tightly it hurt. Ethan looked at Adam and Victoria one last time before pressing play. There was something cold in his eyes. This was recorded last Friday at Mr. Carter's apartment. And then the silence of the courtroom was broken by the voice of Victoria Hale, coming from the speakers. Marcus called today. The hearing is next week, he's confident. Adam went white as a sheet. Victoria froze completely. Adam's voice responded on the recording. And it should be. Grace and Emily have what? Nothing. No real lawyer, no solid defense. We're going to crush them. Murmurs began to spread through the courtroom. Blackwood held up his hand for silence, but he himself was clearly surprised, leaning forward, listening intently. The recording continued. Victoria laughed about me being a nosy old woman. They discussed the perfect scam to force the sale of the house. Marcus Brennan was getting progressively paler, realizing what was coming. And then came the part that would make everything fall apart. Do you think Blackwood will rule in our favor for sure? Adam's voice. Marcus assured me. Blackwood is predictable. He follows the law to the letter, without sentimentality. And technically, you do have legal arguments, even if they are weak. But with the evidence we fabricated about Emily's mental instability, do we manufacture? The courtroom erupted in murmurs. People turned to look at Marcus, who stood there, completely shocked. Victoria laughed on the recording. Adam, honey, do you really think those emotional recordings and some medication would be enough? Please. Marcus adjusted some documents. Nothing illegal, of course, just strategically edited. Turn it off! Marcus shouted, stepping forward. Your Honor, I demand that this be turned off immediately. This is silence! Blackwood slammed the gavel down. Sit down, Attorney Brennan! Now! Marcus slumped back in his chair, sweating. The recording continued relentlessly. Victoria described how she was going to buy the house below market value through her company. Adam expressed momentary guilt, but was convinced by Victoria of his right to rebuild his life. Every word was another nail in their coffin. When the recording mentioned strategically redacted documents again, Blackwood stood up, his face red with anger. Attorney Brennan, his voice echoed through the courtroom like thunder. Is there something you want to tell me? Marcus was shaking. Your Honor, I don't... You falsified evidence? Blackwood roared. In this court? In my court? I didn't. It was just interpretation. Interpretation? Blackwood was clearly struggling to maintain his composure. The recording I just heard has your client explicitly stating that you edited documents. You fabricated evidence. The recording ended, but the silence that followed was even more deafening. Ethan calmly turned off the device and walked back to the center of the courtroom. Your Honor, he said, his voice controlled but thick with righteous indignation. What you just heard is irrefutable proof that this case was built on fraud. Marcus Brennan falsified evidence. Victoria Hale conspired to commit real estate fraud, and Adam Carter was complicit in all of it. He turned to our table and pointed at me and Emily. These two women nearly lost everything because of a criminal scheme disguised as a legitimate legal dispute. And if it weren't for the courage of an 8-year-old who recorded this conversation, they would have lost. Victoria has finally found her voice. This was recorded without consent. It's unacceptable. It was recorded by a child who was present at the conversation, Ethan cut in. Completely legal under state law. And even if it wasn't, Your Honor, are you really going to ignore evidence of procedural fraud on a technicality? Blackwood stood, hands braced on the counter, glaring at Marcus with pure fury. Attorney Brennan, you are hereby immediately removed from this case. I will be forwarding a copy of this recording and all related documents to the Bar Association for disciplinary investigation. You may face permanent disqualification. Your Honor, please, Marcus began, but Blackwood held up his hand. Get out of my court, now. Marcus picked up his briefcase with trembling hands and walked quickly out, his head down. Blackwood then turned his attention to Adam and Victoria. "Mr. Carter, Miss Hale, please stand." They stood slowly. Adam looked like he was about to vomit. Victoria kept her chin up, but I could see the panic in her eyes. "I've practiced law for 40 years, Blackwood said, his voice low but dangerous. "And I've rarely seen anything as despicable as what I just heard. You two conspired to use this court as a tool to steal from vulnerable women. You fabricated evidence. You lied repeatedly." He banged the gavel. "Plaintiff's case is dismissed with prejudice. This means, Mr. Carter, that you may never file this action again. The estate remains solely with Grace Mitchell. There is no division of assets. You receive nothing." Adam collapsed, literally, falling back into his chair. "Furthermore," Blackwood continued, "I am ordering Mr. Carter to pay all legal costs for his defense, and I will be forwarding this recording to the district attorney for criminal investigation of fraud and document forgery." Victoria tried one last time. "Your Honor, I am a respected businesswoman. I cannot have my reputation." "You should have thought of that before you conspired to commit fraud," Blackwood cut her off coldly. "And, Miss Hale, I suggest you hire a top-notch criminal lawyer, because you're going to need it." He banged the gavel one last time. "This hearing is closed. Case closed. Get out of my courtroom." The courtroom erupted. Journalists who were present rushed outside to report. People whispered and pointed at Adam and Victoria. I sat there, completely stunned, barely able to process what had just happened. Emily was crying, but this time they were tears of relief. We won?" she whispered. Ethan turned to us, and for the first time since we'd entered the courthouse, he smiled. A huge, genuine smile. "You won. Completely." I broke down. All the weeks of stress, fear, and sleepless nights came flooding back. I cried so hard my whole body shook. Emily hugged me from the wheelchair, and Ethan put his hands on our shoulders. "It's over," he said softly. "You're safe. This is your home. No one can take it from you now." Across the courtroom, Victoria was hurriedly leaving, her face a mask of suppressed fury. Adam sat alone, his head in his hands, devastated. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered everything he'd done, how he'd abandoned Emily when she needed him most, how he'd conspired to steal from us, how he'd used his own daughter as a pawn in a cruel game. No, he deserved every second of it. Ethan helped us out of the courthouse. There were reporters waiting outside, but he politely waved them away. "No comments at this time, thank you." When we got to the car, I could finally breathe again. "Ethan," she said, cupping his face with both hands. You saved our lives." "No," he corrected gently, placing his hands over mine. "Chloe saved us, that brave girl, and you saved yourselves, fighting when most would have given up. I just helped finish the job." We drove home in silence, still processing everything. When we arrived, Chloe was waiting on the porch with her neighbor. As soon as she saw us, she ran over. "So what? So what? What happened?" Emily opened the arms of the wheelchair, and Chloe jumped into it. "We won, my love. We won. Because of you, you saved our family." Chloe began to cry with relief, hugging her mother. We all went into the house. Our house, which was now safe forever. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. True peace. The fight was over, and we had won.